evening and welcome to Meticulous Moments. My name is Juanita Kapp. You can reach me at meticulousmacarons@gmail.com or find me on LinkedIn. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe, I've had the wonderful privilege to meet a wide array of fantastic individuals. These individuals have truly touched my life in so many positive ways. Amongst this group of people, there are authors, public speakers, life coaches, poets, leaders, and visionaries. They are the unsung heroes of our time. Therefore, I decided to start the Meticulous Moments movement out of a sense of my gratitude. It is my way of giving back to the community. Let us share and reshare their stories in an effort to build a better society. Good day, Meticulous Moments audience. Thank you for joining us for yet another powerful session here at the Meticulous Moments podcast. We facilitate community upliftment through leadership development. And today we have the privilege of spending time with the wonderful Juliane Cooley. A little bit more about Juliane. Juliane is a certified Scrum Master and project leader who is experienced in facilitating projects. Good evening, Meticulous Moments audience. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another vibrant session on the topic of leadership. And this evening, we have the wonderful privilege of spending time with the amazing Juliane Cooley. Welcome, Juliane.
Thank you, Juanita. It's a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you making time for us. I know you are a professional. I know you are very busy. Thank you for being with us this evening. And we've had a video call together and we've been on a Zoom together, I believe, a few Zooms. And, you know, we've communicated. So I know a little bit about you. I know you. But for the audience members who've never met you before, would you just introduce yourself as well, please?
Absolutely. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Jay through a group called Speakers Speak Live. That is a 1-hour session every week where aspiring speakers get together and give each other feedback. That is what I am, is an aspiring professional speaker. But I have to pay the bills. So I also, during the day, I play the role of a project lead at a leading insurance company.
Beautiful, absolutely, yes. And since I met Juliane, you know, she's been so vibrant, audience, and she's got such a lovely, a lovable personality that I thought this leading lady has to be on this podcast, and you have to meet her. So thank you so much for joining us. Now, you are really a leader in a huge sphere of leadership. You have different areas in which you lead, and I'm going to list these as we go along. And would you just elaborate on these roles that you fulfill? I mean, you do not have this normal profile. You have an exceptional profile. So as I read out the areas where you function in, would you just elaborate on them? You are a servant leader.
Yes. So on my LinkedIn profile, rather than just putting your position, what they tell you to do is put your skill set. And there are many different types of leadership, and I'm sure you all have experienced a myriad of them, from the micromanager to leaders that you might have to lead yourself. But my favorite type of leadership style is servant leadership. I was doing it naturally, not even knowing what it was called. But my opinion of leadership is to serve and support others to help them become their best. It's not about telling people what to do or showing people what to do. It's being there to support them and build relationships with them so that they can shine. How can you serve the people you work with? How can you support them and care about them? When you care about your team and they know that, they're going to be more willing to go the extra mile for you, work overtime if they have to, and fulfill those projects that you're asking them to do. Long gone are the days of the micromanager. Unfortunately, some of us may still have that. I've had my share of micromanagers, but you're not going to be successful that way. So gone is control. We're more in an agile world. So build those relationships, serve your people, and you'll be astounded on how they serve you. So for example, I have a new senior director at work, and she gave me a project to do. And what she was worried about is the team going to do the work? Are they going to get the backlog done? And I wasn't worried about that because I had built a good relationship with them over the last couple of years. And sure enough, they were willing to do it, even though they had a lot of work to do. I think they were more willing to do it for me because they knew I cared. They knew I was understanding. They had a relationship with me. They knew I cared about their lives. So they're more willing to do work when you need them to.
Juliane, and this is why you and I mean, I feel like I've known you for much longer than I have. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I actually did a post on LinkedIn, I think it's a few months ago now, that I wrote, I have never heard of micro leaders, only micromanagers. And then I ended the post by saying, when you lead, make sure you lead well. And micromanagers, like you've mentioned, are not people that build relationship. It's all about the goal. Leaders are people, like you've mentioned, that build relationship. We get involved with the people we lead. We are actually sincerely interested in the person. And there you gave the magic ingredient. The moment you do that, when you build that relationship, they want to go the extra mile because they feel accepted, they feel loved, they feel valued. How important is relationship building? How much time and effort do you put into relationship building?
I put in effort every single day at work. So I work remotely, and most of my team is hybrid. So I have to work extra hard to keep those relationships going. So I do a few things. With my management team, and I'm considered part of an extended leadership team, I set up video touch points monthly to keep those relationships going. But what I do for my team, and then I pick 3 of the production staff every day, is I do cute little sayings. Like today was happy, think of something that will make you, do something that will make you happy Thursday. And I try to do like a little alliteration, something positive. And usually, if they're not too busy, it will lead into a little bit of a conversation, what's going on in their lives. So like today, it was one lady's birthday. So I made sure I sent her an email with a nice big picture, a happy birthday, asked her, what are you doing for your birthday? I conversed a little bit with her. It doesn't take that much time. Back to my new senior director, she was kind of like, Julie, this must take a lot of time. I'm like, no, it doesn't. You copy paste. And then, if you get into a little bit of conversation, you do that. But it makes such a big difference. It's 15 minutes a day. But it's consistent. It's every single day. Yeah. So they know that you're genuinely interested in them. They like the cute little sayings. It puts a smile on their face. And it puts a smile on my face, too, because, my senior director's like, oh, well, just put it into MS Teams and do a channel. I did it because she's my boss. But after a week and it didn't succeed, I said, listen, I really like giving the individual attention.
Yes.
So throwing it out there to everybody, nobody responds, and it doesn't make you feel special. If you get oh, well, Julie's thinking of me today. That's awesome, It makes you feel valued.
Absolutely true. I agree with you. Those 15 minutes a day are so small compared to the results that you get, the team morale that is high, the vibe, the general vibe in the team. And I mean, you're a professional at facilitating teams, so you must know how to work with different personalities, I'm sure. You know how to approach each person, and that came through the knowledge and experience that you've built up, but also by working with them and getting to know them. So when you lead a project, Juliane, what are the type of things that you like to do as the leader of a team, as the project leader?
Recognition is really important. So every time we finish a project, I like to recognize them. So in my work, we have something called a peer-to-peer award, and I can give that to them. And if they get 5 of those, they get to have a gift card of a store of their choice. We also have employee cards that we can give out and copy their manager. So then we can say, okay, this is the strong points you demonstrated in this project. And then, the manager has that. So when it's reward and recognition time, that gets on their performance review. So I always like to give a good job, make sure their manager knows what a great job they're doing, and whatever recognition I can give them, I think is really, really important because they put hard work into the project. They should be recognized for all the good work they did.
They do. And that is, I think, if I had to describe what I saw now in a picture, is as the project leader, Juliane, I feel that you're the glue. I feel that you're the glue that puts everybody together. Your fluency in leadership, your fluency in working with people, your servanthood, your heart-centeredness, that combines and forms this glue that brings the team together. Now, you are also a certified Scrum Master. Tell us a little bit more about that, because that I found that very, very interesting. Project management.
Yeah, well, project management is changing, just like everything else right now, into more of an agile mindset. So the old way used to be you did a whole project, and then you would find out about all the flaws afterwards. Well, that's kind of not good. You want to find out about the flaws along the way. So there is a new, it's not that new. It's been 20 years. But Agile is getting more traction in the corporate world, where you do what we call 2-week sprints, where you do minimal viable products, where you produce little bits and pieces and make sure they work, and you give it to the business and make sure everything's good. So I got my certified Scrum Master because that is what I would like to do, is be a Scrum Master. So it helps to have that certification.
Wonderful. And you mentioned something very important, and that's something I focus on in the podcast especially, and in everything I really do, is personal and professional development. The reason why you are so successful in what you do and why your teams are happy, but they're always also performing very well, is because you stay on top of the new trends. You educate yourself and you take that information and you bring it to your team so that you know how to approach a project. Now, public speaking is much like that, because, as public speakers, and you've been through it, I'm sure, someone can just, out of the blue ask you to speak about any topic. And we have to make sure as public speakers that we have that general knowledge, at least to have a starting point. How important is it for you as a public speaker to build up general knowledge, and how do you keep abreast of the important topics that are being faced at the moment? Because I actually spoke with someone the other day in a short business talk that I have every week on a Monday, about business, a short business talk. And I talked to them about how important it is to have a niche, for instance. And we found that the health and wealth industry is something that really never goes out of style. So as a public speaker, tell us more about your role as a public speaker, please.
Absolutely. I think one of the challenges people have when they get into speaking is, well, I don't know what to speak about, or I can speak about anything. But as you just mentioned, it's the niche that's important. This is the biggest feedback I give to speakers in our Speakers Speak Live group. Narrow down your niche. Mm-hmm. Get a target audience, because the event planners are not going to think about you if, well, I can speak about that, I can speak about this. No, you need to narrow it down. And as you mentioned, of course, health and wealth are never going to go out of style, because we all want to be healthy and we all want to be wealthy. So if you are an aspiring speaker, what traumas have you been through in your life that you've overcome? What are you an expert in? What do you love to do that maybe other people aren't as, well-spoken in? There's so many different ways that you can find your topic. And for me, it's wellness, because unfortunately, I have had a undiagnosed chronic illness for the past 30-something years. And thank God, through a lot of trial and error and tips and tricks, I've overcome that. And that's what I want to share with people is, how do you overcome that? What can you do? And, I'm not a doctor. There's no one size fits all, but you can change your mindset so that you don't feel powerless over having an undiagnosed chronic illness. So look at your own life and see, if you want to be a speaker, what wisdom do you have? Because we all have wisdom through life experiences that can help somebody else. Like one of my favorite quotes is by Rory Vaden, who came in, I believe, second in the Toastmasters World Championship of Public Speaking.
Wow.
And he says, you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. And I love that.
That is an excellent quote. Phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal. And I love that you speak from the heart. You speak about something that is personal to you. And to me, I find that more impactful when I see and I hear people coming to the stage, coming to the audience, speaking about things that have really traumatized them, like you've mentioned, things that have really built them up. So I commend you on that, because it's not easy. We have to share a bit of ourselves. It's not easy to do that. And that's why I perceive you to be a very, very strong leader, because you put it out there because your heart is to help other people. Now, I wanted to ask you, if you had to describe leadership in one sentence, what would that sentence be?
Leadership is about supporting other people so they can succeed.
Wow. I love that. I love that. Absolutely true. Supporting other people. So the focus is never really on us. The focus is on the other people that we uplift. And there's a reason, Juliane, for that saying, as we rise, we lift. There's a reason for that, because we are made to work together. When I work with the young ones, I always explain to them that, yes, when we grow up, we are dependent on our parents and, our other support systems, our schools and our teachers and our mentors and our, the people that teach us sport. And there's a lot of people that we are dependent on. And then we kind of go out of school and we reach college, for the young leaders listening. And then we are like independent for a while, and we start to work after we have our degrees. And, we look after ourselves. But one thing that doesn't change throughout our lifespan is the fact that we always stay interdependent. And then I teach young ones, never burn bridges, never hurt people, never think you will never in a million years never need this or this or this person, or it doesn't work like that. God has created us, to be interdependent, in my opinion. I always use the illustration, even if they would like to go and live on an island and, work from there, they'll still need the Wi-Fi technician if the Wi-Fi breaks. That makes them interdependent. And then they always have a laugh. So thank you so much for sharing that. That wonderful sentence. Now, you have leadership quotes, I'm sure. You have a stack of them, because you are very, well experienced. What is your favorite leadership quote and why?
Well, I think I just shared it with Rory Vaden. That was my favorite quote.
Okay, all right, wonderful.
I'll say it again because I think it's really important. You're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. I
love that. Most powerfully positioned. And it's really all about positioning, I spoke to someone actually yesterday in a one of the interviews that I haven't actually posted yet. And I said to them that networking is our new currency. Networking is our new currency. So it's all about positioning. And then I also like to tell people, and you will know this in the corporate world, we learn about self-management, we learn about managing others, we learn about managing the corporation. Then, of course, we move on to the management of the stakeholders. But where does it start? It starts here. It starts with me before it can fly over to the next person. Now, in your opinion, how often should leaders engage in personal and professional development activities?
I think that's such an individual choice. So I really think it's up to the person. Personally, I do it every day. I mean, I thrive on personal development, so I make sure I'm either reading or watching a course on the speaking or writing a speech, but I make sure that every day I have time to do it. But it shouldn't be a chore. It should be something you enjoy. So find what works for you. But I want to pivot back for a second to what you said about networking, because I think a lot of people don't do networking well. And they think it's all about, I mean, I know there's a little passe because it's probably QR codes now, but passing out business cards and it's all about me and here you go and what can you do for me? Networking is back to building relationships. Networking is all about providing value. So when you go to a networking event, it's not about how many people can you speed and meet in a room? It's about what can you do for somebody? Because if you provide value, you don't even have to sell. Like one of the big pet peeves I have, and I think a lot of people feel the same way, is being picked. Somebody has to be your Facebook friend or a connection on LinkedIn. And next thing you know is you get this message, hey, I have this course. Would you like to buy it? No, it's about providing value. If you provide so much value for somebody, you're going to crave to buy your products. So, for instance, I'm in Toastmasters, and Darren McCroy, who is the 2001 World Champ of Public Speaking, he provides a lot of value. He has newsletters. He has videos on his Facebook page. He gives a lot of content away for free. I'm only too happy to buy his courses because he's provided so much value. And that goes with other speakers in the Toastmasters world too. They provide a ton of value. So when they come out with something, I'm like, yes, please, I want to learn more from you. So that's what it's about. If you have 100 followers and you're giving really good, rich content, you might think to yourself, I need to make money. If you have 10 out of those 100 that are really loyal and will buy anything you have because you gave them so much good value, you're fine. And of course, it's going to be more than 10, but it's the percentage. And you're not wasting anything by giving it to those other 90 for free because you're helping people and maybe they can't afford it now. 5 years down the road, they're going to think of you. And when they have the resources, they're going to come. I mean, speaking is a long game. You're not going to, it takes a lot of planting seeds. So produce that value, build those relationships, see what you can do for people. And then you're not going to have to worry as much about sales, relationship building, networking. But that's what networking is. It's about building those relationships and producing value. And too many people, it just stuns me because there's so much material out there about this, but I see it all the time on LinkedIn and Facebook, people complaining about being pitched to. I get it as well. And I'm like, no, if you don't try to build a relationship with me, I'm not interested.
Absolutely. And that's where we know the authentic leadership comes in and the authentic relationships. And you said something very important. You said that you keep busy with personal and professional development every single day. And you also listed various modes of personal and professional development, which I love because we can't stick to one thing. COVID has taught us we have to be adaptable. And you also mentioned that it's a good thing to make certain things free and available to your people. And I think that is something phenomenal. It's something vital because you have so many people out there that actually, like you've mentioned, just want to connect because they want to sell you something. And if they just realize they're doing it the wrong way around, like you mentioned, they are going to have wonderful businesses that will scale because people need to know that you actually care. I mean, we do have to make a living. We are entrepreneurs. We have businesses, but people want to know that we care. That's the most important thing that they want to know. So how should leaders, because you and I are very busy and we have tough schedules, and sometimes, we have to manage those schedules very well. In your opinion, how do leaders deal with burnout? How should they?
Their burnout or the people's burnout?
Sorry?
Their burnout or the people that report to them's burnout?
Well, you can discuss both. I was mentioning leaders burning out on their own, but there's another angle as well. If you want to mention, people around them that were burnt out, that's also phenomenal.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, everybody is weary right now. I mean, we've had a really difficult 2.5 years. We're not out of it yet, folks. So it's really hard. But what brings you joy? And it can be hard when you have kids and you have family and you have jobs and everything else you have to take care of. But 5 minutes a day doing something you love will pay off in dividends. And I'm also a huge proponent in mindfulness. Meditation has been my saving grace in the corporate world. As anybody will tell you who's in the corporate world, it's a lot of politics and it can definitely burn you out. So practicing 15 minutes of meditation before the workday is a life changer because it can help you respond rather than react. So I find quiet time because we live in a society where we have constant stimulus and our brains are not meant to take the constant stimulus. You're not meant to look at emails, look at Facebook notifications, and look at texts, and you have all news, especially news. You've got all this stuff coming at you, and you can have it on 24/7. From the time you wake up, you might be looking at your phone and you might be falling asleep to the news at night. It's just too much. Just take a few minutes every day for complete silence. And it doesn't mean you're going to be able to shut the thoughts off. Nobody's able to do that, not even monks and nuns, but just to have that quiet time to allow ideas and inspiration to come to you, to just unplug from the world for a little while. And I think if you engage a little bit in your whatever lights you up and some silence every day, that can help turn around some of the weariness. Now, I think with the times we're going through right now, you're going to feel fatigued and weary just because of world events. But if you do self-care every single day, then that will help turn that around. And I say to folks, self-care is 3 times as important as it used to be. I mean, you really need to take that time for yourself, whether it's a hot bath, a massage, meditation, whatever resonates with you and will help restore you. You need to think of yourself. Even if you're a parent, you can't give from your kids on an empty cup. You have to be full yourself. So you're going to do them the greatest service by filling yourself. And if that means, hey kids, go play outside for a little while, take that time for yourself. You're not being selfish. You're being self-centered. And that's really important, is to center yourself so that you can be there for everybody else. And especially women, we feel that we have to give. You got to give to yourself first. And that's a hard lesson for us, but life will teach it to you if you don't do it for yourself first.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. You mentioned a few things there. Life is so fast-paced. I mean, even if we are the best networkers, parents, executives, mothers, sisters, daughters, we can be whatever. We can be at the top of our game of everything that we do. We're still human. We still only have so much energy. There's still only so many hours in the day. And you mentioned something that I also listened to and that caught my ear earlier when you said about the emailing of your team members. You mentioned only those 15 minutes a day, but it's consistent. And here you give a wonderful answer to a tough question. If only you take those 5 or 10 minutes a day, but be consistent with it. Don't skip days, because you might feel, today I don't need that meditation, but subconsciously maybe you do. So just make it a part of your lunch hour, for instance, if you don't have other time. So I think that's excellent advice. Thank you so much. And it brings us to our next question. What should the values be of a leader, and how should leaders facilitate an acceptance of these values in their teams?
Well, I'm going to do the values in a moment, but I just want to piggyback for a moment. Yes, consistency is important, but I feel that in social media, we're like, you got to do this every day, you got to do that every day. And sometimes it's a lot of pressure, which is kind of going to negate the self-care. So be gentle with yourself. If you fall off the wagon with the consistency, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just do it the next day. But don't make it a chore. Don't make it something that, oh God, here's another thing off my to-do list. Like meditation. If you can only start 1 minute, then do the 1 minute. That's okay.
Right.
And then you're going to crave it and you're going to see it as a pleasure rather than an obligation. So just make sure that the self-care practices don't turn into another thing on your to-do list. Now, as far as values, we all have individual values, and that's not something that we should ever force on somebody else. And in the corporate world, you have to learn what's valuable to a person and adapt. So, for example, I had a manager previously who valued personal development and communication and transparency. She and I were very much aligned in what we thought. I now have a new manager who is more high level, and she values, more independent work, and she challenges you to think for yourself and run with it. So you have to adapt your values to your leader. I mean, that's just the way it is in the corporate world. You have to figure out what the values are of your leader and then do your best to adapt to it. At the same time, you don't want to change yourself, and you want to make sure that your gifts are known too. So as a leader, like if I'm really good with communication and somebody else is really good with independent work, then you find a way to make that work. But we all need each other. Like you had mentioned before about interdependency. None of us have skills in every single area. So we need to value the skills that others can bring, and that may complement our skills. So, maybe I'm organized and somebody's not, and I see that. So I help them with that. I help them in the organization, and maybe they're really good with something that I'm not, and they can teach me more high level thinking. So there's definitely we can give to each other, but I don't like it when somebody's like, well, these are my values, so they have to be your values too. That gets back to what we were talking about, the micromanaging. The thing about diversity and inclusion, which is huge now in the corporate world, is not just about race or gender. It's about thoughts. And we all have gifts to bring. So let's value that and don't say, well, you're weak in this area, you need to get better. No, you rely on their strengths. And, and if they're weak in some area, then you find somebody else who has a strength in that area. And that way you all complement each other, rather than expecting everybody to be cookie cutter.
Exactly true. Diversity and inclusion is a big topic at the moment. It's been coming for years. I'm glad that it has arrived, because I have been in teams many years ago where there were individuals that were better skilled than the per se manager in charge that could have completed the task better. But I'm not sure if it was a fear of being upscaled, or maybe looking like they weren't competent, but the manager wouldn't let those individuals carry on with their expertise. Whereas I believe that if you're a team. Yes, there's someone that gives direction and vision. That's obvious. We have to have that. But a wonderful team manager or leader would say, you know what? Individual B or C, you are better at this part of the business. You take the lead in this area, because we have to, as a team, reach our goal, have a vision. So I think there's a lot of emotional intelligence also involved with being a leader. And that also spills through in the values. We can't, like you've said, we can't imprint ourselves on others. All we can do is just be a good example and experience. And it's a give and take. We can just be good examples. So give and take always, inclusion, diversity, absolutely, I agree with you. And, a transference of everyone's values to create that company culture that we want. Now, I want to ask you a very, very fun question, I think. And I asked this sometimes on the podcast, but I thought to include it with you because I would really like to know if you could spend a day with any world-renowned leader, who would it be and why?
Well, thing is, I think we put too much stock in our celebrity leaders. We put them on pedestals and we think they're so fantastic, but they're human like all of us. So I don't really hero worship a lot of leaders. But who I would like to meet is some world-renowned speakers like Zig Ziglar or Jim Rohn, who unfortunately are no longer with us. They were salespeople. They did teach about leadership and they taught about servant leadership. They were ahead of their time, but they were also like the forefathers of public speaking. So it would have been really cool to see them speak live in person. I mean, of course, we've got video and courses, but it would have been cool to be back in the day with them and learn from them and soak it in that knowledge. But we have to be careful. We all have value. And we need to realize that and not give our power away and say, oh, this person is so fantastic. I think they walk on water. No, we all do. We all have value. So be careful with our celebrity worship. And as we see, that's kind of falling away as things come out and scandals come out and they're not so great. So so we have to do that with our leaders too, and watch who you put stock in and watch who you believe in, and make sure you're filling yourself with things that resonate with you. So a little bit back to the personal development. I mean, we live in such a great age where we have all this information at our fingertips, the internet, podcasts, books. I'm old-fashioned. I love my books, but
same here.
Surround yourself with that. So I think it might have been Jim Rohn who said you are the 5 people you surround yourself with. It was either Jim Rohn or Brian Tracy. But it doesn't have to be in person. It can be virtually too. So listen to things that are going to uplift you. We have enough things that are going to bring us down. So it's important to stay informed, but at the same time, you don't want it to depress you, especially with the news today. So make sure you're listening to things that lift you up, that are going to make you shine, that make you think well of yourself. And keep that. A lot of us have been programmed from when we were little kids. Oh, you can't do this or you can't do that. And sometimes our parents were well-meaning and they were trying to help us, but they had their own programming. So reprogram yourself by listening to positive things. And you might think, oh no, another thing to do, but you can do it while you're at work. If you're not in a meeting and you're just doing production work, you can listen to podcasts in the background. Even if you can't give 100% of your attention, it's going to go into your subconscious. You could do it while you're multitasking. I know there's no such thing as real multitasking. Have that playing in the background. There's a lot of talk about affirmations, but surround yourself with as much positivity as you can. And that's going to help you shine. And if you shine, it's not a selfish thing because then you're going to be able to give it to others. And you'll have more patience with others as they are suffering.
Yeah. Wonderful. Absolutely true. Yes. And our time together has flown by so quickly. I can't believe that we are nearing the last 2 questions of our interview. So, we know you fulfill many roles. We know you are busy. You are in the corporate world. You work in a hybrid fashion. You're also a speaker of note. What is next for you? What are you currently busy with? Any upcoming projects that we can support or, share to retrieve some support for you?
Well, thank you for asking, Jay. I'm actually working on my keynote to help people overcome the frustrations that they deal with when they have an undiagnosed chronic illness. So that's going to be my focus, is get that keynote written and then start giving the keynote to start helping people with that. Because unfortunately, especially with COVID and all our habits, because we have so much on our plate, we eat processed food, and sometimes we have unfiltered water, and there's just so much coming at us and so much stress that illness is going to be more and more of an issue. And we want to make sure that we stay healthy, or if we're not healthy, that we can get there, because honestly, that's the biggest wealth. Your life doesn't have as much quality if you're not feeling well. So to me, that's really important. So I want to help as many people as I can with that.
Wonderful. And would you feel comfortable to tell the audience about the illness that you had?
It's still undiagnosed. That's why I can talk about undiagnosed chronic illnesses. So I have a feeling it could be Epstein-Barr, but it was never truly diagnosed. And that's why that's going to be my target audience, because it's hard enough dealing with an illness day after day, but when it's invisible and doctors can't tell you what's wrong with you, it adds a whole other level of frustration and powerlessness, because people look at you and, oh, well, you look fine to me. You know, you don't have a broken arm. You know, you look healthy. What's wrong with you? You're making this up. It's in your head. And it's not. You know, so there's a lot of things that are going on, and that's why I can speak to it. I mean, I've had a few doctors tell me they think it might be Lyme disease. I don't test positive for it very strongly, and I never had the bullseye, so that just doesn't resonate with me. I also read a book from the Medical Medium, which was written by Anthony William, and he said a lot of disease is caused by Epstein-Barr, which hasn't really been accepted by the medical community yet. And when you have trauma, the Epstein-Barr gets activated. So that's what I'm personally thinking it is. I mean, most of us, a lot of us had mono as kids. So we've got the Epstein-Barr in the body. And if you have trauma, then it can trigger it and cause you to get sick. So that's why I'm saying, unfortunately, especially with the way the medical community is these days, doctors don't have time to spend a lot of time on you. They don't have the resources to research what's wrong with you. And there's no cookie cutter approach. We're all individual beings, and it's a mind, body, spirit, that you have to look at, not just the body. And you have to figure out what's going on with this person. What works for me isn't going to work for you. So you have to do some experimentation. There are mindset things that you can try. And that's why it's helpful to have a whole toolbox, because maybe one tool will work for you, one tool works for me, and one tool will work for another person. But you got to try, and you got to have that consistency. You can't have a good diet for 2 weeks and expect to be all better, you know, and it's making those small changes. And we're in a society of instant gratification. Give me a pill and I want to be all better. But that doesn't solve anything. And unfortunately, it took time for you to get sick. It's going to take time for you to get better. Nobody wants to hear that. But it's about that hope, and you do have control, and you are not powerless. And there are things you can do, but you do have to be realistic. It's not going to be a quick fix. We're in a society of quick fixes, and that makes it difficult.
I agree with you on a couple of things that you mentioned. And, you know, we are just wishing you well on this journey of recovery, praying and hoping that they diagnose, that they actually find out what exactly that is, that they put you on, this medication that would just heal you completely. And I commend you on all the hard work that you do. And, you know, something else that struck me from the beginning that we met, and I believe that it was on a Zoom a few times before we actually had our virtual coffee, is that you are always friendly, you are always uplifting in your personality to others. And, you know, when you don't feel well, it's not easy to do that. So I want to commend you on doing that, for still being the light in that tunnel for other people, although you're going through your own things. Well done to you for doing that and for being so amazing.
Thank you. I just want to make a note, though. It doesn't necessarily have to be a diagnosis to overcome it either. So that's the thing, you know, it's not an exact science, and, you know, but there are still things you can do to get yourself healthy. Thank God I'm much healthier than I was, you know, so I have overcome a lot of it. And so there are things you can do. So don't feel that you don't want to be dependent on anybody else. That doesn't mean there's still interdependence. I'm not saying we don't still partner with health professionals. You do, but you partner with them. You don't give your power away to them. And I think that's what we've done. If anything, COVID has shown us is we've given our power away. And you don't want to give your power away. You want to partner, do your own research, see what works for you, take control, and then bring that to the health professional and have them do research and have them add on to it and enhance it. We need to work together. But too many times We say, oh, you're a doctor, you know best, you take care of it all. They don't have time. They don't have the resources. You need to take that control. And it's work. And a lot of people don't want to do the work. They want, they want to hand it off to somebody else. But unfortunately, you're going to pay for that. So it's best to put that investment into yourself because you are so worth it. And then you can partner and take your power back.
Wonderfully articulated. Don't give your power back. And, always have that positive outlook. I love that. It's such an inspiration to us. And with that, it comes to our last. This session is coming to our last question. Do you have any words of wisdom for the audience?
Just be really good to yourself right now. Life is really tough. So please be gentle with yourself. There's a lot going on in the world right now. I just saw in the news right before this call that they're calling COVID a health emergency again. So, we're not out of the woods, and we've got inflation, recession, so much going on. So please put self-care first. Please put yourself first and be good to yourself. Know how amazing you are and how much the world needs you. And make sure that you are putting yourself first. I know it's said that a couple of times, but it's that important. And it's not selfish. We have been told our whole lives that putting ourselves is selfish, and it's not. Because if you are full of love, you're full of peace, you're going to be able to share that with other people and be a resource for them when they are suffering. But you can't do that if you're suffering. So there are so many different ways that we have mentioned in this podcast that you can do that, from meditation to listening to positive podcasts, reading positive books. Do something for yourself every day, not an obligation, but something that brings you joy so that you don't burn out, so that you're not weary. And if you are, then take that nap, go for that walk, get outside, but make sure you're being good to yourself.
Absolutely phenomenal advice for our contemporary time. And it's true. We grew up feeling guilty, every time we did something for ourselves. But we have to realize times have changed. Our eyes have opened. We are more in tune now than ever before. And we have to pursue, self-care. I agree with you completely. And I thank you. Together with the Meticulous Moments audience, for your time, your expertise, the sharing of your knowledge. Thank you so much, Juliane. You have added so much value to this podcast.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And to the Meticulous Moments audience, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to make Juliane's contact details available. Contact her, network with her, and let's cheer her on this phenomenal leadership journey that she has started and that she is just growing in. She's going from strength to strength, and we'll see you in the next session. Goodbye.